Today's story is
Mischief of Bath.
It's just a rope swing. Wait till he sees us drying leaves in the sun. He'll come running. I'm just about fed up with your sarcasm. I'm trying to do some father-son bonding here, so you just butt out. You know what?
The desert sun was just beginning to bake the asphalt of Tucson on August 17, 2011. At 6:30 a.m., the air was already humming with dry heat, smelling of sage and distant dust. Inside a stainless steel DeLorean parked at 8020 North La Chola Boulevard, Imani sat in the driver's seat. She wasn't going anywhere, but the cockpit of the time machine felt like the only place that understood her. Her red-painted lips were set in a line of quiet concentration as she prepared for the day. Imani wasn't just sitting, she was in rhythm. Between the gear shift and the heavy door frame, she was rhythmically dribbling a textured red playground ball against the floor mat. The thump-thump of the rubber against the carpet echoed like a heartbeat within the cramped, wire-filled interior of the car. Her turquoise pants shifted as she adjusted her stance, the ball never leaving the palm of her hand. Outside the car, the world was waking up. Sarah and Max stood by the sidewalk, watching the DeLorean with a mix of awe and impatience. Sarah adjusted her purple glasses, her yellow t-shirt bright against the morning shadows, while Max leaned against a nearby palm tree, his orange t-shirt glowing in the early light. They were waiting for Imani to emerge from her metallic sanctuary. Imani stepped out of the DeLorean, the red ball tucked under her arm. "Ready for the big move?" Sarah asked, her gray earrings catching the light. Imani nodded, though her mind was elsewhere. They started walking toward the apartment complex, the heat of the pavement already seeping through the soles of their sneakers. Sarah began talking about their summer plans, her pink lips moving fast as she gestured toward the horizon. "We still have time before the movers arrive," Max said, catching up to them. His turquoise pants matched the color of the morning sky. "I was thinking we should finally finish Putt-Putt Joins the Circus on the PC. I'm stuck on the part where you have to find the triangle for the high wire act." Imani laughed, the tension of the move finally breaking. "You're still on that? I finished that CD-ROM weeks ago, Max." The conversation shifted back to the reality of the day. Sarah and Max helped Imani carry a few light bags toward the door. "You're going to love Silver Bell Road," Sarah promised, trying to sound upbeat. Imani smiled, but as she reached the threshold of her home, she felt a strange pull toward the back of the apartment. She excused herself, claiming she needed one last look around before the chaos of packing truly began. Imani retreated inside the apartment, the red ball still tucked under her arm. The moving boxes were piled high in the hallway, creating a cardboard labyrinth. She bypassed the living room and headed straight for the bathroom. The white porcelain bathtub sat in the center of the room, looking strangely grand amidst the clutter. To Imani, it didn't look like a place to wash. It looked like a portal. She stepped over the porcelain edge, her sneakers clicking against the smooth surface. As she sat down, the air began to ripple. The mundane world of Tucson started to fade, replaced by a shimmering turquoise light that rose from the drain. Imani took a deep breath, her blue headband feeling tight against her forehead, and plunged into the swirling, magical depths of her own imagination. Suddenly, the bathroom walls fell away, replaced by the towering spires of Bathworld. This was an underwater metropolis, built entirely from bubbles, coral, and smooth sea glass. Imani floated through the warm current, her turquoise pants swaying like seaweed in the tide. The city was alive with a hum that sounded like 1,000 tiny bells ringing at once. Her path was suddenly blocked by a local resident. A gray, grumpy fish, looking as though it had just woken up on the wrong side of the reef, drifted in front of her. It had a permanent scowl etched into its face and small, flickering fins. Between its fins, it clutched an ancient-looking, waterproof scroll. It puffed out its cheeks, clearly unimpressed by the teenage girl floating in its territory. The fish unrolled the scroll with a flourish, pointing a fin at a series of illustrated rules. Imani couldn't read the symbols, but the fish's message was clear. No ball games in the Bubble District. Imani tucked her red playground ball tighter under her arm and gave the fish a playful wink. If she was going to explore Bathworld, she was going to do it with a bit of mischief. As she pushed past the fish, the sky, or rather, the upper layer of the ocean, came alive. A school of bright orange sponges fluttered their edges like wings, darting through the water like a flock of birds. They spiraled around Imani, their soft bodies brushing against her blue t-shirt. She reached out to touch one, but it giggled and darted away, leaving a trail of tiny bubbles in its wake. Below her, the coral floor was just as busy. Long-handled green bath brushes were springing off the ground, jumping with the frantic energy of hyperactive pogo sticks. Each time they landed, they sent up puffs of golden sand. Imani had to tuck her legs in to avoid being bopped by an overzealous brush that was trying to see how high it could leap. The chaos continued as a row of light blue shampoo bottles marched past, their caps clicking rhythmically. Suddenly, they began to kick their legs in a synchronized line dance, splashing bubbles everywhere. Imani laughed, her red lips parting as she dodged a particularly enthusiastic kick. The whole world felt like a celebration of the mundane turned magnificent. In the center of the city, a giant yellow rubber duck was waiting. It was the size of a small boat, with a friendly expression and a glossy finish. Imani climbed onto its back, finding the surface surprisingly soft and warm. With a gentle nudge, the duck began to glide through the water, its massive wings paddling through the turquoise current with ease. They drifted into a cloud of thick, pink bubbles. Each bubble was the size of a grapefruit and smelled faintly of strawberries. As the duck moved, the bubbles popped with a musical ping, releasing bursts of glittery mist. Imani closed her eyes for a moment, letting the pink haze wash over her, feeling more at peace than she had all morning. But the real world was calling. Imani reached down toward the floor of the duck's saddle and found a heavy brass plug. She knew that pulling it would end the fantasy. With one last look at the flying sponges and the jumping brushes, she gripped the handle and pulled. The water began to spin in a massive, shimmering vortex, drawing everything toward the center. The turquoise light intensified, blindingly bright for a second before it began to fade. The sound of the underwater bells was replaced by the familiar hum of a refrigerator. Imani felt the cold porcelain of the tub beneath her once more. The water was gone, leaving her sitting in a dry bathtub in a house full of boxes. She stood up, the red ball still in her hand. She walked out into the living room, where the atmosphere was far from peaceful. Her father, Jack, was struggling through the front door. He was a mountain of a man with a gigantic afro that almost touched the doorframe. In his arms, he balanced a heavy 24-pack of Dr. Pepper. His face strained as he navigated the narrow path between towers of boxes. Disaster struck in an instant. A stray puddle of water from Imani's adventure had somehow manifested on the linoleum. Jack's red boot hit the wet patch, and his legs flew out from under him. The Dr. Pepper box launched into the air. With a loud oof, Jack landed hard on the floor, and a stray can bounced off his forehead with a dull thud. Patricia, Imani's mother, appeared in the kitchen doorway. Her own majestic afro was framed by the kitchen light, and her orange dress flowed around her as she rushed forward. Her hands flew to her face in shock. "Jack, are you okay?" she cried, her sandals slapping against the floor as she navigated around the rolling cans of soda. Amidst the chaos of the falling soda, Imani's pink smartphone began to vibrate on the counter. The screen lit up with a picture of her older sister, Francine. Imani swiped the screen, trying to ignore her dad grumbling on the floor. "Hey, Francine," Imani said, leaning against a box. "Yeah, we're almost ready. Dad just had a soda-related incident." The move was officially in high gear. They loaded the final boxes into their vehicle, a van painted in wild, swirling colors that looked exactly like the Mystery Machine. Patricia and Imani worked together to slide the last heavy crate into the back. "New beginnings, Imani," Patricia said, giving her daughter a reassuring smile. They were ready to leave La Chola Boulevard behind. Jack took the wheel, a small bandage on his forehead from the bunk. Imani sat in the passenger seat, the red playground ball resting in her lap. As they pulled onto North Silverbell RD, the desert landscape blurred past the windows. The family laughed together as Jack made a joke about the Great Dr. Pepper flood of 2011. They arrived at the new house at 2120 North Silverbell Road. Francine was already there to greet them, her red long skirt swaying as she ran to the van. She handed Imani a giant, shimmering purple stability ball. "A gift for the new room," Francine said. Imani sat on the floor of her new home, leaning against the purple ball and sipping a cold Dr. Pepper. The mischief of the bath was over, but a new adventure was just beginning.
The end.